Hi, this week I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about how to get started working on your Isearch paper. We'll look at the heuristic for figuring out whether your research question is a good research question to be asking. That is, whether it will work for this assignment. I'll show you some highlights from the English 1020 Library Guide on the WSU Library page, and I'll show you how to start drafting your introduction and research plan for the project that's due at the end of the week. Here I'm looking at language in the Isearch assignment description, and the video that you watched last week already explained a lot of the rationale for the Isearch project, the ways that it's different from, say, a traditional research project, and showed you some of the key moves in a student's paper. And you can go back and look at that video at any time that is helpful for you to remember some of the major goals. But in the assignment description itself, we have a lot of directions for you, and it's worth following these to help you do the best possible job on this project. So at the beginning of this week, and you would have been kind of asked to write about this in your blog for this week or this past week, you're really going to be wanting to think about several potential Isearch questions. I would kind of let 2 or 3 or 4 roll around for a couple of days and then apply the heuristic that we're going to talk about to those questions. So think about an issue or idea that you would like to explore. Some of you might have come up with some ideas from doing the rhetorical analysis project. Maybe you have some things you're wondering based on that, and so those are going to link you to research questions that you're going to pose. You don't have to draw from what you did on Project 1, however, but you should know that the question that you explore in Project 2 is going to carry through our work in Projects 3 and 4. So you're going to think about potential issues, assess prior knowledge that you have, think about what do I already know and what do I need to know. The Isearch question should be about something that you want to or need to know about, but it shouldn't be something that you already have a definitive answer for. This set of questions right here will help you figure out whether or not a research question is going to work for this project. And I'll also be giving you feedback on that this week so that before you get too far in the project, if you need to do some adjusting, you can do that. The very first thing to think about is simply, is it written as a question or a set of questions instead of as a statement? You are writing this paper to find answers to your research question. And in the project, you're going to be describing the research process that you go through to find answers to that question, finally ending up in the end of the paper by synthesizing your conclusions and writing about what you learned about writing and research. Think about if you need to clarify any terms to make your research question understandable to your audience. For example, if your research question includes some specialized knowledge, then it would be a good idea to make sure that that's communicable to readers. Are you personally invested in exploring the question? Why or how will exploring that question help you? Can you articulate your motivation for asking that question? That articulation of motivation is going to be important in your introduction draft. And if you can't explain why you want to know, then it's probably not the best answer. Is this question something that you can research using secondary sources? Meaning, will you be able to use academic journals, periodicals like newspapers and magazines, other online resources to answer this question? Or is it something that you need to use primary research for, like talking to people? We're testing out and practicing using secondary research in this project, so you're going to want to make sure that it's something that you can research using secondary sources. Can it be answered too easily, or do you need a diverse set of sources to understand the answer? If you really could just find one Wikipedia site and everything you need to know is there, then it's probably not a good research question. And then finally, is your question specific or concrete enough to explore in 1,500 to 2,000 words? So about the same length of the paper that you just wrote. Or is it too broad or too narrow? I always like to joke about my junior year in high school. For my history class, I wrote my term paper on economic decline and reform during the Great Depression. And it was only supposed to be like an 8 to 10 page research paper. But basically, the topic that I selected meant I had to write about the entire Great Depression in 8 to 10 pages, which was just impossible. And it was way too much ground for me to cover to do a good job in those 8 to 10 pages. So thinking about these questions is going to get you started on figuring out which research question you have that's going to really work for the project. A good next step this week would be to click on the library resources link on the left side of our Blackboard site. And when you do that, you're going to find yourself taken to the English Research Guide. This guide is constructed and maintained by our English library liaison, Judith Arnold, and really takes you right to the kinds of databases and resources that are useful for the projects that you're asked to write in English classes. And in fact, look, here's an Isearch guide sheet for searching and starting to map your Isearch conversation. So that would be really worth looking at. You can also start to look around here. If you're researching an issue, Gale opposing viewpoints and context might help you out there. ProQuest Research Library and Academic OneFile are good general databases that will take you through finding resources from periodicals and from academic journals, and so those would be really useful as well. And then if you have some more specialized kinds of questions, for example, a question about a local issue, you might want to go into the Free Press, or a question about a job or a career, you might want to look in the Occupational Outlook Handbook. The Isearch guide sheet might be useful for when you get started drafting the body of your Isearch paper, because you'll actually write the body of the paper as you begin researching. So this could just help you figure out how to get started on that process. So you might want to print that off and use it to help guide you through your work. Finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about what to do in the assignment that's due on Sunday. Here I'm working in a Microsoft Word document. This is the document that I'm going to eventually continue drafting my Isearch project in. So I'm going to start here. I don't need to make several different documents, although you certainly could if that's the way that you choose to work. So I'm setting up my heading right away, and a title would probably be whatever I decide my Isearch question is. I'm going to call that a provisional title because later on in the writing process I might decide to change my title to something that better captures the tone and the purpose of my Isearch question, or kind of integrates what I'm finding out in my research. So as I begin drafting my introduction, then the very first paragraph or paragraphs is going to be a few things. First, I need to very clearly present what my Isearch question is. Then I need to articulate my motivation, and I need to lay out my prior knowledge. So these three things could actually happen in any order. Keep that in mind. If it makes more sense to you to talk about your prior knowledge and then lay out your Isearch question and then explain your motivation, that's okay. This opening section might be one paragraph, it might be two paragraphs. Sometimes these Isearch introductions are as long as a page and a half because students have a lot of prior knowledge on the general topic or issue, and then they're trying to narrow down to find something new about a certain angle of it. So anywhere from a half a page to a page is generally what the length of the introduction is like. Then you're going to write a paragraph on your research plan. And this is really going to be telling where do you think you will begin your research, what sources might you use, and this can go one of two ways. One, you can just describe your first source, or you can lay out a whole plan. If you know what you're going to ask for your first source search, maybe keywords you will use or the database you're going to try and why you're going to try that database. You could do that, or if you are trying to lay out a whole plan for research, for example, you might say, describe how you'll search for sources that contribute various perspectives. So your research plan won't be just, I'm going to look for 3 sources using the library database, but it will be trying to think ahead about how you're going to move through the Isearch process. Writing this will allow me to give you some feedback on that, and then this paragraph can also remain in your draft if you think that it's useful. One of our goals in this class is to develop a flexible research process. And so I think you should expect that your initial plan may change over the course of the project. And we're trying to give you the opportunity to experience that.